Adam and Eve story is one of the most misunderstood and mistranslated story in the Bible, biblical story. That's completely mistranslated, and that's not really true at all in any way how they came about and that they had sex to create human race. Her rib was removed. Let's stop drinking the religious Kool-Aid. The rib removal is a misrepresentation, misunderstanding of genetic procedures done by the Anunnaki at that time. This was a Anunnaki time, experimenting with humans, including cloning, genetic revisions, human DNA, that kind of stuff, human organs, creation of slavery, a slave race, human race. So the Garden of Eden was a bullshit story. This was Anunnaki Lab, an outdoor lab. They came here 5 times. First visit was actually a quick surveillance visit, a reconnaissance visit. This was before the integration of draconian DNA. And their ship came in the first time, main visit. This is when they heavily mistreated humans, and the story of Enki and Enlil, also misunderstandings. Names Enki and Enlil are misspelled. The Nibiru is also not a planet. Enlil and Enki were never brothers, etc., etc. But they didn't come here to mine some gold, to inspect some environmental things. They came here to create a laboratory, an outdoor cloning laboratory, genetic extractions, hybridization programs. When they came here, they didn't come here to create a human race. Humans were already in existence. Anunnakis just came here after. So the Garden of Eve, it's the Garden of Eden, this never existed. These are religious stories. The breeding program is truly what Anunnakis were interested in the most, in a very parasitic way, of course, at first. And this reality, this location that we're in now, I mean, this wasn't that occupied back then, but the first program ever created for cloning, for mass cloning, was by the Anunnakis. This was present Iraq today. And the Iraq back then obviously wasn't called Iraq. It was, I think this Iraq name came in the 7th century. Back then was Mesopotamia, but the Iraq region was the very first hybridization and laboratory breeding program, this prototype type of program. It was very first time that they've ever done this here. And the serpent depiction, the snake, that's not a snake. That was a representation of Earth reptilians and draconian hybrid groups that were present on Earth. That's 4th density and early 5th density group. That's it. 4th density, early 5th density are the Earth reptilians, and draconian beings are their predecessors, their creators who gave them life. And the Alpha Draconians and their actual groups and hybrid groups that they came here with, they were all involved with the Earth Reptilians. They were also involved with the Anunnakis, with Thoth, with Ra, with Elohim. These were very large, complex stories. So for religions to just say Adam and Eve had sex and created a few sons, and again, these are fairy tales. And the races who wanted to enslave humanity, they were not Draconians. Draconians came here to protect us from the Anunnakis. It's the Anunnakis that enslaved humans. And humans, of course, weren't appreciative that much at that time, appreciative of reptilian protection. And today, I mean, humans are the same. We're greedy, we're selfish, we're arrogant, ignorant, we lie, we cheat, we deceive, etc. But Anunnakis themselves wanted to be called gods, G-O-D-S. But religions changed it. They say God, G-O-D. And this is where a lot of the God versus gods, the misunderstandings and arguments and debates come from. But S was definitely removed. The God in the Bible means 2 things. Elohim and Anunnaki. That's it. Not a man that sits in a chair, humanoid man looking down. But as far as the presence of Draconians, presence of Anunnakis and their projects and labs is, yeah, pretty much Draconian beings intervened. They intervened. The Nagai race, Morkul race, KALASK race, the Mongar race, they intervened because they didn't really see a purpose or a point of Anunnakis taking advantage of humans so bad, so harshly. And Anunnakis didn't come to Earth just so that they can urge Eve to go and give Adam a couple extra blowjobs so that they can create humanity. I mean, let's be real here. Anunnakis came here for a reason, and one of them was to create a slave race, and that's a human race. And they're cloning us. They were cloning us regularly, daily. The fruit depiction, which is another mistranslation. There was no such thing as apples at that time. Let's get that straight. Apples didn't exist at that time. Apples, the representation in art depiction is sexuality and reproduction. Snakes represented wisdom. Apples represented sexuality and reproduction, not some forbidden fruit. And if we look at apples today, I mean, I'm no expert on apples. There's like 6,000 or 7,000 different type of families of apples, but none of them existed at that time. So the religions wanted to do is to paint the whole snake story, forbidden fruit story, because of fear mongering, fear porn, that devil, demons, evil will possess you if you don't listen to God and listen to the God's word. It's based on fear porn. Fear, fear, fear. It's how religions operate. It has nothing to do with Satan, devil, Lucifer, Enki, Enlil, none of these things. A lot of these names are thrown around like ping pong. And if we ask Christians today, specifically Roman Catholics, what's demon, evil? What's the difference between a demon, Satan, Lucifer, evil, satanic, black magic, fallen angels, Nephilim, Enki, Enlil, Ra, Marduk, Draconian or Draconis or Draco or Demon Gal, Morkul, Nagai, Hermes, Nimrod, Thoth, Elohim, and as we go on with names, they will not have the answer. All they'll tell you most likely is that it's a conspiracy theory, none of these things are real, or if they are real, they say, oh, it's all bad, it's demonic, it's black, it's darkness, it's Satan's children. Most of the time, this is what I hear. It's just demonic, 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 but they don't know the origin of that word, demons or demonic. Everything is labeled by religious people as bad, demonic, as long as the Bible says so. So it's fear mongering. They're being conditioned to fear. They fear things they don't understand. Like demon is a term that comes from a race of draconians that were here called the Demon Ga. So the whole concept of Adam and Eve are completely made up. It's an altered story. It's mostly a fake story. The major Abrahamic religions anyway, Judaism, Islam, Christianity, they're all worshiping planet Saturn. All of them, every single one of them. So it doesn't matter what holy book, I don't want to even say holy, but what book we're reading, Torah, Quran, Bible, New Testament, Old Testament, all these things. These are biblical fairy tale stories that have been heavily revised. The Cain, Abel, Seth story, these are heavily revised. Abel was murdered by Cain. Eve gave birth to Seth. Bible also states that Adam and Eve had additional sons and daughters, but never provide their names in the Genesis account. Of course, they have no names for the daughters and the other sons, because none of these stories are true. They're misrepresentations and they're mistranslations. And all major religions, as I said, always have, presently do, worship planet Saturn and different practices. If we dig down deep to the abyss of the religion creation, and of course the worshippers know that. They don't understand that. Like no person that goes to the Vatican understands what's under the Vatican. And extraterrestrials have expressed many times, if we look at all the channelings in the past 20, 30 years, they're disgusted by humans because humans participate in a lot of these pagan practices, in actual black magic, in sacrificing children. The religious headquarters in the world, there's top 3, Vatican's one of them. This is exactly what they stand for, but humans don't know that part because we're programmed to worship. There's a lot of sick stuff going around when it comes to major religions that's not discussed on Earth. So Earth reptilians are the representation of the snake, and snakes, of course, are not some second density animals that Bible makes them to be. This is a mistranslation of actual beings who were reptilian in nature, who were draconian in nature. The apple part 2 is not the first time we're seeing this. This is also a story from the Greek mythology or Greek stories where there was a garden, where there was apples, there was a woman who was protected by dragons. I mean, Google it, this stuff is public information. The dragons are not some pet dragons, I mean, come on, they're not like birds. They're flying around. No, they were advanced beings. And every time that we see these depictions of dragons, when we see depictions of these dragon art, even going back to Asia, yeah, this was a presence of alpha draconians on Earth. Chinese culture to even Atlantis, Lemuria. Humans always have depicted what they saw. Primitive people back then, whatever they saw, they depicted. And these hybrid programs between humans and extraterrestrials is nothing new. We see them today. Sasani, Pleyel, Yael. These are hybrid programs, Zeta Reticuli programs. So there's nothing new. There's avian programs, reptilian programs, and our DNA is a hybridized DNA. We have 22 contributions. Reptilian is one, and alpha draconian is another. So I don't need to understand all things about hybrid programs, but I can understand enough to know that humans co-create with extraterrestrials on many different high dimensional levels. Many, many different, 4th, 5th, and 6th density, including physical levels. So as far as the quotes about Adam and Eve, well, isn't it true that Cain said, one of the sons, after he killed his brother, to Anunnaki, he said, God, if you kick me out there, they will kill me. But who's he talking about if he's one of the 4 humans alive on Earth today? Another version of this hoax story is where Cain said to God, God meaning Anunnaki, he says, hey, you're driving me away from this land and I'm going to be, hidden from your presence. I get it. But if you kick me out there, those out there will kill me. Well, who's he talking about? If out there that no one else exists, nothing else exists. Yeah, he's referring to other civilizations. So let's not waste any energy or primitive religion, propaganda and nonsense. God is a representation of Anunnaki and Elohim. That is it. That's it. The lab of Anunnaki is called Garden of Eden in northern Iraq. Absolutely. They're ripped from the Eve. This is, of course, bullshit story. This is a representation of a large-scale cloning. Cutting up humans, studying out organs and things like that. So cloning technology was used. These practices were implemented by the actual Anunnaki beings who brought the technology here. And the Bible stories of these events and this time, I mean, this is sort of a partially true event, but it's so misrepresented. And this also happened hundreds of thousands of years ago. And let's not forget, the Bible itself was written, combination of texts, between 300 and 900 years after apparent Jesus' death, who was never crucified, by the way, who was married, had children, went to Tibet, India, and Egypt, and etc. Just like he never wrote the Bible, Jesus is not his real name, Christ is not his last name, and the propaganda picture we see of him, that's not him. That's Caesar, one of the Pope's sons. Jesus didn't create Christianity, Constantine did, much later. And there were multiple Jesus entities. I did channeling about the Jesus entity through KALASK, and there were multiple Jesus entities. And Christianity, in general, is a religion of the sun. It's worshiping the sun, not worshiping someone's sun. So someone's sun versus sky's sun, those are 2 completely different concepts. And this is where the mistranslation comes in that says Jesus walked on the water. No. The translation itself is sun's reflections walked on water. Not someone's son, not someone's sibling, someone's child. No. Sun's reflections walked on water. The history of this religion isn't really disclosed to the human population. Let's not mention the hundreds of thousands of innocent people that were murdered, raped, killed, beheaded, witches that have been beheaded just because they were telepathic, the amount of wars that popes created. I personally visited a place in Avignon, France, southern France. It's a tiny little beautiful, beautiful town where the first, I think, 4 or 6 popes lived. I did a tour of the castle, I was inside there, and I've seen some of the most goriest stories and events in those historic times of what kind of genocides popes ordered at that time against the population that did not agree with popes' rules and regulations, like tyrannic rules and populations, warden type of prison rules and of this local population at that time. So there's much more to Christianity. There's much more to the origin of Christianity, the origin of, let's say, before the Roman Empire, origin of the actual Rome, the Club of Saturn, aka Saturnia. All of these things play a very large part of our own growth. But if we're going to continue to drink the Kool-Aid, we're never going to understand these true stories. And I mean, in our 3D life, it doesn't really even matter. I mean, it doesn't even really matter. Life is going by so fast. Let's find something to love. Let's have someone to love us, and let's just live our life happily and enjoy life and do things and be creative and help each other as far in a collective aspect is concerned. But if we're going to be constantly preoccupied with religions, we'll never see anything outside of that cage. And the religion is cage, it's a prison system. And there's another prison system called spirituality, and then there is everything else outside. So when it comes to the Adam and Eve story, again, it is such a Disney story that I to this day cannot believe that people still believe in that. I mean, I've talked to a lot of people that really practice religion wonderfully. I have family members back home in Europe who do, friends, neighbors. These are wonderful humans. I would give shirt off of my back to them. They are friends. I proudly bring them here into my house. This is my house. I'm sitting in my living room. But the issue is, I want to ask them, is like, how do you not believe in the presence of extraterrestrials or UFO and dimensions and beings who are coming here with ships. It's in the Bible written. It just doesn't say UFO. It says flying furnaces, flying objects. Like, how do you not believe in, right now in 2025, everything that's happening within us as far as external influences and external contacts, physical contact, astral contact, out-of-body contact, avatar insertions, beings walking literally through walls to meet their human counterparts, channeling, trance channeling, non-trance channeling, portal visitations, all of these things. How do you not believe in any of that? But you're going to believe that Eve was laying in a Garden of Eden with a knife, somebody cut her through her ribs and took out a rib, and what? Like, I'm flabbergasted sometimes at some of these stories, but as far as the Adam and Eve thing is concerned, yeah, those are just a very large pileup of misunderstandings and misrepresentations, that's all.